everybody. Welcome to the new normal. I'm your host, Lisa Davis, aka Litecoin Lisa, and today I have a real treat for you. A dear friend, Dr. Jim Willie. He is a patriot, a warrior for the little guy, and he has just committed his life to getting the truth out. And I'm going to share some of that with you. So hang in there and give us a like. We'll be right back right after this with Dr. Jim Willie, the Golden Jackass. Good morning, my friend. How are you, Dr. Jim Willie?
I like to say that I'm doing strange.
Strange.
I'm doing okay. The last few days have been kind of rough. Some things I had to deal with, but if anyone says I'm doing great, I think that means they're clueless.
Right. I would totally agree with you. Right now, there's so much going on in the world. If you think it's not affecting you, it is affecting you. This is happening to all of us.
There are a lot of things that are affecting us, and the most clueless. I can't say that ignorance is bliss. I say ignorance is ignorance, and you may not be aware of a truck coming from your flank that's going to run you down and destroy your business, or render your bank account frozen, or your main place of purchasing things, whatever it is, food, clothing, hardware, suddenly you're not going to be able to use that anymore. Okay, that's what you need to be aware of for what's coming down the pike, in addition to water and gasoline, and diesel. I got to tell you something that is encouraging, but I like to qualify things. I know I'm all over the place sometimes, but I heard from a really good, smart guy, and I got 30, 50 different clients who I'm in touch with because they're multi-year. And this is a guy who is a smart fella, okay? And he doesn't say things that is wild off the cuff. He said that it was several months ago that we had a scare that diesel was going to be in very, very strict short supply. And the military made it millions of gallons available. And he said it's going to happen again. If we get into a really, really dangerous situation in the energy sector with diesel, the military will probably again make millions of gallons available. But what that means is that they would put a limitation on their own ability to wander out to the 50 states to impose any kind of state of order. I'll just say it like that. All right, so this time around, we might actually get a diesel shortage because the military might want to hang on to their own depots of diesel. Okay, we've got a number of different refineries that have gone poof. I don't mean turned off. I mean, they got blown up.
They were destroyed.
I don't believe in accidents. Not really. When I had, this is kind of a funny thing to say as a sideline. I had a bicycle accident. It was September of 2020. And I had another bike accident 4 months later. The second one made a bloody face and gave me...
And that was one of my first interviews with you, was right after that.
Yeah, I had makeup on that. I had makeup on my eye. Women's flesh tone makeup there.
Yeah.
I've got a sequence of 15 photos, and it's really quite harrowing to see the first two. But I don't believe... Oh, and by the way, I hadn't had a bike accident since I was 18. So between the age of 18 and 68, I had not a single bike accident. Okay? Therefore, I think that was a demonic event. If it's too rare to justify. Okay, so this is how I get slammed. I get slammed from the side. On the second bike accident, I had a blackout. I walked about half a mile to my apartment building, and the guard out front said, Jimmy, keep us all. What happened? And I said, I don't know. Where am I? This isn't my bike. This isn't my bike. I was delirious. I had a concussion and I blacked out. Okay. This is some of the things that I'm dealing with. Anyway, the accidents. I don't believe in accidents. I don't believe in the diesel and other fuel refineries go up by accident.
At the same time that all the food processing plants are the same thing happening to them.
Yep.
It's like all the pipelines, all the methods of transfer of product to the people are being destroyed.
Well, no. Many are being interrupted. Okay. Some come back. Can I be the advocate? Can I be the advocate for chickens for a few minutes?
Please do.
I got my list of the processing plants and the evidence lined up and dates and locations, Minneapolis, St. Louis, Utah, Pennsylvania, New York, Tennessee. It's all across the country. No state has been spared. What I noticed was, let me add up all the chickens. My gosh, Minnesota alone had 13 million chickens destroyed. Okay, it's under the let's just say the official declaration of bird flu. Okay, just be nice. Pardon me, I got a wild eyebrow like Elmo Zumwalt from the 1970s. I added up the chickens, and it was 35 million. And I thought, wow, that explains the egg price increase. And then I talked to a rancher.
But those kind of chickens don't make the eggs unless they were taking out those kind of chickens.
Well, it's male and female.
Because the chickens you eat are different than the egg-laying chickens.
Okay, but I think there is
an
overlap. Okay, yeah. Fatten up the chickens, and they're not the egg laying. Okay, I'm not an expert in all that, but what this rancher buddy of mine, he's a client, he's also a friend. He's in Northern California. He said, Jim, I've got a few, not a lot. I got a few poultry ranchers.
Okay,
and they raise chickens. And he kind of set me straight on some things. I don't want to get on this topic too long, but it's something worth remembering because he was loaded with information. He said, what do you think the chicken population is in the United States?
I would have no concept of that.
I said, well, a good starting point is it less or more than the human population? He said, yeah, that's a good place to start. What do you think? I said, I think it's probably a little bit less, like, I don't know, 150 million, 180 million. He said, Jim, it's well over 1 billion. So you got 35 million out of 1 billion. That's 1 out of 30 chickens perished. He said, no, that is the reason they give you for why the egg prices are higher. For all we know, we're exporting our eggs to China.
So it's just an optics move, similar to, so that's what was happening with the cattle this past summer. They were showing these pictures and making it look like, this horrible cattle death event. And then my buddies, and I'm in Oklahoma, my buddies are in Kansas, and they're like, Lisa, that 1,000 cows dying, seriously? Like, that's nothing.
Then there's another side. I'm done as the chicken advocate. Actually, I'm not advocating. I'm more like a chicken reporter. I've never chased chickens, but my mother did. My mother chased chickens when she was a little kid. She said, Jim, it was really quite tough. When I was about 11 years old, my mother gave me charge of chasing down a chicken so that we could make dinner.
Yeah, it's difficult.
That meant I had to cut his head off.
Yeah.
And I was
usually you get a pole or a stick and you chase them, and then you hold them down with, like, put your foot on it and hold them down.
Okay. All right.
And then you cut their head off.
We're getting off track. There's another point that the rancher made. He said, you've got 160 food processing plants that have been, let's just say, wrecked. I'm not interested in talking about how they're wrecked. I've got my own theories, but for a different day. And he said to me, how many different US-based food processing plants do you think there are, Jim? Okay, this is a rancher. He knows his business. I mean, he's very expert at what he does. He knows about fertilizer prices. He said, I paid 5 times more for fertilizer in 2021 than I did for 2020. 5 times more. I paid 10 times more for PVC pipe for some irrigation that I was working on. How many different food processing plants are there in the United States, Lisa? Take a guess.
I looked at this one time. I know there's, I can't remember what show that was. We looked it up. I can't remember. I don't know.
About 9,000.
Thousands?
9,000. Okay, so 160 out of 9,000 is a little bit, it's about 1 in 60. Okay, so that's not much. I looked to see how many times you have to multiply. All right, now divide by 60. Okay, it's under 2%. Okay, we're getting all bent out of shape. Right. But again, I'm not minimizing the damage. What I'm saying is, let's get an accurate picture of the entirety. So 2% went up in flames. All right, and not even 3% of the chickens are being destroyed. And I got news for you. They're going to make more chickens. They're good at that. They're not as good as rabbits are. All right, let's get on to some. What do you want to talk about?
I agree. So I'm very interested in what's happening if in the military situation. I had heard or seen, I believe it was David Nino Rodriguez. Somebody was talking about, Brazil just had their election. The people were very unhappy, and the people went to the military and said, like, we're unhappy with this. There are big,
this is gonna be hard. This is gonna be hard to discuss with it.
I know, we're dancing.
Dance routine. Yeah, I followed what was going on in Brazil. I actually did a consult in I think it was September with a client in the Midwest who had a Brazilian wife, and he said, we are watching this race, and he said, we're expecting some funny business to enable Lula to win. And we're actually more interested in the reaction than we are the election. So now we have it. I think 1 million took to the streets. They're blocking channels for like distribution trucks for food delivery, supplies, cement blocks, lumber, hardware. They're blocking the avenues now. And the president is saying to the Brazilian people, please let the supply trucks come through. We need food.
Bolsonaro is saying that? Or Lula is saying that?
I believe, well, it's the current president. I think it's Bolsonaro.
Okay.
Yeah, and Lula
is not conceding.
Let me just say that that Lula is a far right-wing candidate, and Bolsonaro is not getting a fair shake from the elites. Okay. So you can interpret that the way you wish. I'm hoping that there is some kind of a martial action, a military action. What we might see in Brazil is that the economy goes to a standstill unless they provide a remedy for the election that looks like, by many accounts, was tainted. I actually follow the methods. I don't know how much we can talk about this. I follow the methods of the election fraud.
You can't say that word.
Okay.
They don't like you saying that word. But I am curious. So, like, what's happening
in... I follow that. I follow the methods.
The methods, yeah. So in Brazil, what would it take for that martial action or that military action to engage? And do you think that it's because? So one of my best friends, actually two of my really close friends, are from Brazil, and they were talking about how, growing up, there wasn't the well, the government will fix it for you, or somebody else is going to come save you. Where in America, I think we all kind of have been waiting for someone else to come fix it or save us, and so that's kept Americans not taking action, in my opinion. But now you see the people in Brazil flooding the streets, asking for their military to come and defend them, or be a representation
defend the
of
democratic
them.
process.
Right.
Let's be clear.
And so what does it take to have that action, to have that martial action come into place?
In the United States or Brazil?
Sure. Theoretically, I guess both. I don't know. Is it different one way or the other? Would it be different?
Yeah, it's very different.
Okay.
Because it's never happened in the United States. And that's one reason they're so reluctant to do anything. They don't want it to be the first time. But I say there's never been a better time to make a first time. We are at risk for the republic. We're at risk for the democratic process. We need to assure the voting process, because that is critical for the democratic process. You can't have democracy without solid voting with integrity. And the entire issue of the mail-in ballots, that is in focus right now. If a state permits mail-in ballots, to me, they're opening the door toward improprieties. Okay?
And that will all be decided in the Supreme Court on a state level. Is that right?
I think so, but there's a whole lot more going on than just that. There are a lot of irregularities that need to be, I heard this word now more and more lately, adjudicated.
Okay.
There has to be a judgment rendered on a panel or a board, and it's got to be done on an individual basis within each state. So that it's like a voter judicial board. That's what I hear might be coming. At least it's somewhat in the planning stages. I don't know if it's going to be the reality, but what I have been hearing, and this has been bandied about by a few different popular analysts and speakers, it could be that the military organizes and runs the adjudication boards, the voter judging boards, in layman's terms, the adjudication for disputes about the election. For instance, an accusation could come that several thousand photocopies with all the same signature are submitted, and the adjudication board would say, throw them out. That's not proper. Okay, there are so many types of irregularities. I love that word, irregularity. When I see an irregularity, all you have to do is shove the manure and the covering away, and you see a crime. Okay, irregularity. Oh, we had a bunch go up and a bunch go down at 2 a.m. Okay, irregularity. And there's usually a couple of companies that are associated with irregularity. Okay, this is very complicated, and it's hard to dance around, but I believe, okay, to your question, what will it take? In the United States, I believe it will take the military concluding that the mass of the U.S. population is losing faith in the entire democratic process. If they believe that an individual voter regards his or her own vote as being irrelevant, and that is a majority viewpoint, then I think the military will say, that's one big reason we need to enter the picture.
So on that point, when you're talking about majority, there was a recent article that came out that said that the last census was incorrect in 15 states.
The what was incorrect? I missed a word.
The census.
Oh, census.
And I believe
they forgot to count the dead people.
I believe that the census has been wrong for years and possibly manipulated on purpose. But I also think that this whole Elon Twitter bot thing is going to expose those numbers or be part of exposing.
Well, the exposure from several months ago was that robots had Twitter accounts, and that was kind of interesting. Yeah. That was one.
Yeah.
On the census, I think there has been ample evidence that certain groups get counted more than once in census, and there's a pattern to it. Let's just leave it at that. I got a funny little story. I never knew how old my mother was until the 1965 census came around, and me and my brother, we had our ear right next to the doorway so we could hear what the year of my mother's birth was.
She would hide that from you? That's funny.
Pardon me?
I just think that's funny that she would hide that from you.
Because she was older than my dad.
Ah, okay.
And not 1 or 2 years. But she was a spry little Irish clean. And
I love it.
And we confronted her afterward, and she just would not talk. So you were born in that year? And we said the year. And she just ignored it and walked out the room. Or opened the refrigerator and started working on something.
Sounds like a very smart lady.
But it all made sense. Oh my gosh, Mom's 3.5 years older than Dad. I can't believe it. Okay, back then it was kind of an onus. Not exactly a stigma, but it was an unusual thing. Men married a younger, beautiful one. Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, in the Latin culture, it's quite all right to pursue a woman who's 20 to 30 years younger. Yeah, baby. Yeah. Okay. The census is the basis. People need to understand this. It's the basis for determining redistricting.
Right.
And how many representatives in the Congress your state has.
Right.
Now, let me just make up something. Let's just say Oklahoma has an increase in its population according to the census, and they realize, wow, we don't know where this all came from, but we have close to 1 million more from the census 10 years ago. We need 2 more House representatives.
Right.
What are the district lines going to be? Okay, there are lots and lots of ramifications for it. And then you start getting into the gerrymandering. You know what I mean by that?
I do.
And it's an ugly, ugly practice. Mm-hmm. And the evidence is, well, gosh, you got this one district and it's got a long sliver that goes up like that. Yeah, that's so you can eliminate the opposing party in that little town. Yeah, or that mid-sized city. You can overwhelm it with the bigger city. Oh, yeah. Okay, gerrymandering is to undercut the democratic process, and it's a standard operating procedure. The census this time has a lot to do with the unvetted immigrants. And for those who don't understand this, since 2009, with the Obama inauguration, 2009, we're up 30 million. We're up 2 million just since the early months of 2021.
But are we really? Because I believe that some of those didn't make it. A lot of those didn't make it.
Okay,
or live for a very short amount of time. Then we can't talk about all that.
I cannot follow through because my opinion is inflammatory.
Yeah, I
It has to
understand.
do with little kids.
Yeah, we won't go there, but
Yeah. Okay,
so
let's get into
back
some finance economic stuff.
yes. I'm really curious. I was talking with my mom about your recent newsletter. So you have the Golden Jackass newsletter that comes out. It's very informative. Everyone should go and subscribe and get this information sent to you. This is
And it's at a
something
bargain price of $110 for 6 months. I've had about 30 clients say to me, Jim, you do interviews and you don't mention how cheap it is. It's $110 for 6 months,
right.
$220 for the full year. There are a lot of other people out there and they're
And
good analysts.
Packed with information. I mean,
there are a lot of good analysts out there, Lisa, and they're at the $300 range annually. I'm at $220. So, click on the yellow subscribe button in the middle, and there's only one choice. There's only one newsletter, and it's for a 6-month subscription. It's doing very well, and I've had a remarkable recovery, I'm glad to say, Lisa, in the last year. I have a new payment processor, and it's working out well.
That's great. Well, it's definitely worth.
Your mother subscribes?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Well, it's not proper if you use the same login.
I don't use the login. She shares information with me. I need to subscribe myself.
No. I'm just joking with you. I actually have
it's one of our chats that when as soon as the newsletter comes out, she calls me and we go through it. Yeah.
I got a funny little side story. When I was doing conference talks in Cambridge, the Cambridge House in Canada, Cambridge House conference circuit, I had, I love going to Toronto. I love going to Vancouver. They were just a lot of fun. Rubbing shoulders with other analysts, meeting different guys and a few women. I got confronted by these two young guys. They were, 28, 30 in age, and one was big and one was not so big. And they confronted me and said, "Hi, Jim, we have a subscription." And I said, "Really? Oh, that's great. You both subscribe to the newsletter." They said, "No, we share it." Is that okay? And I said, "Well, actually, it's improper." I'm not sure that's true. I'm not sure I caught that.
I don't know how you want me to respond to that. Yeah. No,
anyway, I just have fun. And I said to him, "It's not a problem. I'm sure it's done quite often. Husbands and wives, what are you going to have 2 subscriptions? Are you kidding me?"
Yeah, no. I would think
friends.
one
and he
family.
said, "Well, we share the login. I hope that's okay." I said, "Look, I don't care." And said, "We want to take you out for dinner." And I said, "Oh, really? It's got to be nearby for my security reasons." One was a hockey player. He's a big guy, and I'm not huge. I'm 6'0", 180. I'm not a really big guy. I'm in decent shape, but I'm no match for a hockey player. And the next time they asked me to dinner, like a year later, they had another hockey player, and he was a guy with one of those long names out of Eastern Europe with a bunch of things in it, and he was scary. So the two hockey, anyway, I don't mind it at all. It's okay.
Yeah, it's one of our really fun discussions, and so one of the things that I really kind of she touched on with me was and you would do a much better job. I tried to kind of explain it the other day talking to a friend of mine, but I was like, I'm going to call Jim and see if he'll come on and talk about it. But you were talking about the larger banks failing because of the way that the loans are, and then they buy these bonds, and then the bonds, they're trapped in it or something. So, but the small banks are going to be okay because of the way they are set up. In comparison,
sure.
Can you kind of go into that or break that down for us?
Can I go off for several minutes?
You can go off anywhere you would like to go.
Okay, because this is not an easy topic. And I got to give a lot of credit to my friend, the dearly departed Rob Kirby, who was taken from us and is no longer among us, from Toronto. Good guy. I spent the night at his place before 2 different Toronto conferences. We became really good friends. We disagreed on a couple things, but that's okay. I hope he learned from the disagreement. Anyway, I learned a lot from him about banks and derivatives. And let me go off. There are three types of banks, and then there are credit unions. I'll start with the smallest. You might have a bank that only has 3 branches, and they're in one corner of your state. That's all they are. They don't cross the state border. They don't have, and therefore they don't have another charter with a different bank like Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana. That would be common. Oklahoma, Texas, and New Mexico. That would be common. But if you just got a tiny bank and they only have a couple of other different branches in your location, they have a book of loans. And the key is to follow the book of loans.
Okay.
They have risk from, say, mortgages, car loans, student loans. That's typically subsidized, so you leave that out. Car loans, mortgage loans, room addition loans, business construction loans, business expansion loans, and they might be like pretty close to 50-50 business versus household, which would include the mortgages. Okay, now they have to manage risk, and one good way to manage the risk is to do hedging. And I got a little lesson recently from a client who said, Jim, I've got a good friend, and he was telling me about his small bank where he's a manager, and they have some derivatives. And I said, how many millions? And he said, I think it's only like 1 or 2. Okay, that is very good. That means they're hedging the risk from interest rate swings for their book of loans. So they are in business, and they'll continue to be in business at this very small bank with only a few branches and not thousands of clients, but maybe hundreds of clients. And their risk is managed because they've hedged their book of loans. Okay, I don't want to get into the whole topic of hedging because it's very complicated sometimes. Okay. But what you want to do is, if you're going to lose money on your portfolio of loans, you want to make money with your hedge, so that your net is 0. And then you close it out, and then you do it again. And you close it out, and you do it again, quarter after quarter. Okay, now let's go to type 2. Type 2 is your regional bank. And I tell clients it's a good idea to focus on a regional bank that has exposure to no more than, say, 3 or 4 states, like New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. Like Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, like Illinois, Ohio, and Wisconsin. Okay, a regional state. They might have 80 branches. They might have 110. But the point is, they're not national. Okay. When a regional bank is not national, they don't get invited to the room. The Wall Street room. They don't get invited to the room with the Fed and the big banks who have huge egos and huge books of loans. But let's focus on the regionals. The regionals are not invited to those meetings. So the regional banks, they have their book of loans, and they need to hedge against that. They have bigger risk than the little bank in the corner of your state. They might have, say, $180 million worth of loans in their book of loans. $150, $180 million, $200 million. Okay, and they can get severely harmed if they don't hedge with a protection for the other side of the table when they're lending out money, like in the mortgages and the business loans and the new product line expansion. We need a credit line of $20 million for a company that's in suburban Chicago. Okay, this is a regional bank matter, and they typically are involved only in hedging against their book of loans to match the volume. Okay, and really it's not even as simple as that. They might say, well, we got a book of loans, but we've got an A class. And an A class is about 20% of our loans. They're with clients who've never had a mark against them. We're not going to hedge against that. So they hedge against 80% of their book of loans. Okay, it can get a little complicated.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, that's the middle. Okay. Some in the middle might decide, hey, if it's good for JP Morgan and Bank of America, maybe we can do it too, because we got a guy we just hired from there. So they do a little bit of the derivatives casino game, and they don't have it matched against the book of loans. So they might dabble. Let's just call it dabbling. And if it works out well, they might continue to dabble. So the bigger the regional bank and the more crossover they have of former Wall Street executives,
the more risk they're taking on.
They'll dabble a little bit. But by and large, the regional banks are safe. Okay, enough of them. Now we go to the big banks, and it's a whole different game, an entirely different game. And I pardon me for moving around. I just can't sit still.
No, you're good.
Okay, the big banks are involved in a lot of different things. Some of it's not legal. And I don't want to get, in trouble with your interview.
Yes, I know.
Let's just say that there are illegal activities.
Yes.
And there are also, little one activities. And they get involved with that. And they also get involved with maybe some bond fraud. You can talk about that.
And metals.
Pardon me?
And metals. I watched a documentary called Dirty Gold the other day. But I don't want to get off on a tangent.
Okay. But, the financial fraud has many different faces. Mm-hmm. There are things like, and I'm not saying that all the Wall Street banks are involved in this, but here are some of the fraudulent activities, and it would be shocking to learn that they're not involved at these big banks. Some of this, duplicate treasury bond serial numbers. So you sell one, and that goes to the treasury. You sell the other one, and that goes into private accounts.
Wow.
Okay. All right. So that's not, how should I say? It's a lot more common than you might think.
Okay.
And it's, I heard like, a few trillion. Okay.
So will there be a reckoning of that?
No. We had 9/11. We had 9/11. That got rid of a lot of things. Okay. Another fraudulent activity is doing naked shorts in the commodity markets for the metals or for crude oil or for whatever. But, crude oil and the metals are the primary locations for doing naked shorts. For those who don't know what a naked short is, okay, here's a legitimate short. I want to short the natural gas market. I think we're going to come back down in the next 6 months. So I want a June contract, and I want a short June contract for natural gas. And there will be various price points. Okay, I don't want to get into the price points. I think the natural gas price is going to go down. I want to short it. So your broker says to you, okay, I don't know the exact figures, but you say, I want to do X amount of contracts. I don't want to go wild, but I want to do a few. And your broker will say, okay, we're going to need you to put up $9,000 on your account to devote toward your short contract. Your stake is $9,000. If it goes the wrong way, you lose the $9,000.
Okay.
If it goes your way, that $9,000 is going to go up. But you have to stake some money from your account. Now, if there is a criminal activity regarding naked shorting, it's I want to short 80 contracts on natural gas because we've got a federal government agenda to bring the price down. And you don't need to put any money up. And if it goes in your way, you're going to make a lot of money, and your risk was zero.
Yeah.
You posted nothing. And when you close it out, you're going to have to do some fancy footwork and close out because you never posted your margin at the beginning. Okay, that's a criminal activity, and it's quite prevalent in the gold market.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. Other types of criminal activity, and this was exposed at the Lehman incident in 2008. They had what was called the MERS, the Mortgage Electronic Registry System, and its purpose was to keep track of tens of thousands of mortgages. And they were identified by the name and the address and maybe social security number of the mortgage holder. Okay, and the purpose was to make sure that one mortgage stream of income went to no more than one mortgage bond. And after the dust was cleared in 2008 and early 2009, they concluded with their analysis, the forensic analysis, that the average was 2.5 mortgages per household steady, what do you call it, secure stream. 2.5 mortgage bonds were involved per mortgage. So they were doing a fraudulent game, and they promised that the MERS was to prevent that. No, it was to enable that. Okay, I could go on for an hour, and I need to bring in some guests to provide information. But there are other things that can be done, like insider trading, and the New York Fed is right behind a lot of that. There's algorithm trading. There's a lot of profit to be made from algorithm trading, and that's starting to work its way into the crypto world. I think it's called Aladdin. Okay, so back to the big banks. They've got federal and monetary agendas, the big banks. They might want, for instance, to falsify the consumer price index and drive down the bond yields so that there's profit to be made in a bond rally. But they need supporting evidence for that, like falsified CPI. I think that's going to come in the next year or more. We're going to be working on the way down from this ramp up in consumer prices. We're going to get more supply. We're going to get more participants. It may not happen for a year and a half, but it's going to happen on the other side. Okay, so there's bond fraud with respect to supporting evidence in collusion. Okay, enough about the fraud. Let's get to the derivatives. The agenda is to maintain the dollar by means of the petrodollar derivative and the interest rate swap derivative. It's a little bit more complicated, but smaller, the petrodollar derivative. Back in 75, they were trying to set up all the different foundations and devices so that the Arabs and the OPEC nations could sell oil, take dollars, and store them. They called it the Petro recycling, the Petro surplus recycling. Keep them in dollars, keep them in treasury bonds. Okay, so the foundation of the petrodollar is the dollar, the crude oil price, and I came to learn 5 years ago from Rob Kirby and another of my colleagues that there's a third leg on that table, and it was the precious metals.
Okay.
And precious metals, so just think of gold, silver on one end, crude oil on another end, and the dollar on the other end, 3 ends. Now, the fascinating part was that when they set it up, they had a 30-to-1 price ratio of gold versus silver. And to liquidate this, they need to get back to 30-to-1 gold price silver ratio, which means the silver price is going to jump 3 times as much as the gold price when we get some kind of movement. So invest in silver. Okay, now the petrodollar derivative, I think, is being managed by the Rockefeller gang right now. I call them the Rocky Fellas. Kind of like the good fellas.
Yeah.
The Rocky Fellas. They're in charge. Now, notice that in the last 2 years, the oil price has gone up from, I don't know, $40 to $100. Well, who do you think did that? The Rockefellers did that. Okay. That is a topic for another day in another platform.
Okay.
So you've got $750, $800 trillion notional value of derivatives, and I think a quarter of that, like 200 or less, 200 trillion, are in the petrodollar. And I do not claim to be an expert. I miss a number of key points in this, but I try to get a good grip on the overall picture. Now, the bulk of derivatives is interest rate swap derivatives, and that's what's fracturing now. But I can't talk about the risk to the big banks unless I talk about what these derivatives are. So I continue. The interest rate swap derivative is a link between a certain type of contract and a treasury bond. And there's some insurance concept to it. And I'm not going to speak much more about its structure because I'll expose what I don't understand. There's a big derivative market for bonds. I don't know if they're linked to corporate bonds. They might. I kind of doubt it. I think they're with the treasury bonds. I think the treasury bond has a currency offset with the bond, and the connection rods are with the interest rate swap derivative. And there's an insurance in there, and you got a lot of complications with the repo repurchase windows. Our treasury bond market is one of the most complex in the history of mankind. Keep that in mind. And it's also been corrupted because of the duplicate serial numbers and a lot of other things. Okay, so I could go on a bit more, but I'd rather get to the casino element of what these big banks are doing. When the lockdown brought about shortages for whatever reason, product or workers, or shipment lanes, there was a price effect. And we noticed that, well, they claim we're up to about 7%. I say we're more like about 18. I've been using 2.5 to 1. 2.5 to 1. It's worked out very well for me. John Williams at Shadow Government Statistics was talking about how it was about 8%, pretty steady for price inflation. And we were being told that it was more like 2.5 to 3%. 2.5 to 1. 2.5 to 1. And when we got up to, 5% and 6%, no, it was more like 13, 14, 15%. Because we live in the real world, and those little stat rats, they got their tricks. And
yes, because we're the ones buying eggs, and they're the ones leaving eggs and bacon and those things out of the CPI or whatever that count is.
They do changed the way.
They've changed the way that they are counting interest.
And my joke is they use Alpo dog food instead of steak.
Exactly.
And there are poor people who eat Alpo. I got to confess that I ate one can of Alpo when I was in college. We wanted to know what it tastes like. So we put it on spaghetti.
Oh, gross.
And one guy didn't know what it was. And he said, that was pretty good. And I said, well, did you enjoy your first can of Alpo? And it was kind of a nasty deed, but it's not poison. I mean, dogs love it. The joke is that American dogs eat better than 2/3 of the world.
It's probably true.
Back to these derivatives.
Yes, let's get back.
There are many different agendas, and these big banks work the agendas. They get the job done, and they bring down the interest rate. I'll give you one example. It was following Lehman. There was a bond market rally. We should have gone the other way because we were starting to see price inflation. We were also starting to see bigger and bigger deficits at the U.S. government. I made a forecast in 2009 that we would get to a $1 trillion deficit for the U.S. government, and it would never go away. How did that work out, Lisa?
Here we are.
Yeah, 2009. I made that. Okay, so with increase in the deficit and increase in the price inflation, why did we see a rally in the bond market? Well, the monkeys out there in the press dutifully said that we've got a bond market rally, what do you call it? A rush into safety, safe haven.
Yes, that's what they're saying now again, though, right?
Whatever worked back then can work again. So they were saying that there was a lot of foreign money coming into U.S. treasuries seeking safe haven, refuge. And then Rob Kirby pulls out the Office of the Comptroller to the Currency, and this was in 2011, and he showed the data from 08 and 09, where Morgan Stanley put on $9 trillion of new interest rate swap derivatives that produced an artificial demand for treasuries. Okay, this is how it works.
$9 trillion?
$9 trillion. Yeah. And that what it did was it knocked down the interest rate on the 10-year bond. If my memory serves me, it was something like 2.5%. It went down to 1.6%. And Wall Street made a lot of money. Okay, that is a trick to make money.
To save Wall Street.
Money. To make money, Lisa.
Okay.
And now we're getting the blowback from the lockdowns. Let's just call it the lockdown. That's a harmless term.
Yeah.
And prices went up for whatever reason, absent workers, absent channels, and absent supplies, whatever. Right. So now interest rates are going up. And what do you think is getting harmed but the interest rate swap derivative books? The portfolios of interest rate swap derivatives are getting slammed.
Okay.
What that translates to, let's just take one bank. Let's just take Bank of America. It's my favorite bank to pick on. It's the Bush Bank. And let's just say it's involved in a lot of other things under the table. But let's just say they've got $30 trillion, $25 trillion worth of interest rate swap derivatives. That might be an inaccurate number, but I'm just making an argument. I heard recently that the top 5 U.S. banks had $90 trillion in derivatives. And I say, I think it's twice that. Okay, so if 4 of them have 90, 5 of them have 90, 1 of them might have 20. Okay, so let's say Bank of America has 20 trillion in interest rate swap derivatives. As interest rates go up, they lose money on the 20 trillion in notional value. I'd be willing to bet that Bank of America is looking at the potential of close to $1 trillion and maybe $3 trillion in losses in the next several months. How are they going to fix that? They're not. They're getting patch jobs overnight. We're getting an idea of how big the patch jobs the Wall Street banks are getting and receiving from the Federal Reserve overnight, and it's in the $5 billion per night range.
Those are the bailout. This is what Bix talks about, the bailouts overnight. Yeah, the repo.
No, not well.
Is that different?
Well, repo could be a window to be involved in that because repo is they post the treasuries and they want cash, or they reverse repo. It's the opposite, and I might have the two backwards. I don't really care. I'm talking about the Fed getting a phone call at midnight from Bank of America saying, "Look, we've got $5 billion that we need to patch up by tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.
Wow.
You don't use a repo window for that.
No.
You get a patch job.
Okay.
And the evidence is seen in the growing balance sheet to the Fed. It doesn't come out of nowhere. The money comes out of nowhere, but it doesn't go nowhere. It goes to the Fed, and the Fed patches it. And it's on the Fed balance sheet. And what happens at Bank of America? They're in bankruptcy. This is part of the process, but they don't announce the bankruptcy.
But they're sending all their executives, flying all their executives home from overseas lately, and they've been closing branches over here for the last couple of years.
I heard of a bunch of branches in New Hampshire and northern Massachusetts.
Also Arizona, here in Oklahoma. I mean, drastically in Arizona. So.
Okay, let me put out a hypothesis. Are we seeing a bankruptcy and liquidation of Bank of America without the name? I think we're seeing a movement toward a restructure.
Okay.
If you liquidate, then they all go out. They're all washed out. They're all shut down. We're not seeing that. But what we might be seeing is a restructuring that is an organized and systematic and stable procedure to reduce Bank of America to a certain size. And we don't know if that certain size is 0. We don't know if that certain size is 2/3 of their current or previous volume in branches and book of loans and client base and derivative book.
Okay.
I believe Bank of America might be the first Wall Street bank that is actually wiped out. And what they might be doing is quietly informing their biggest investors, get your money out.
Get yours out first.
This is not going to end well.
Will they do a bail-in?
That's what I'm leading to, Lisa.
Sorry, I'm getting ahead.
If they get the big guys out, the big investors, the big accounts out, then they've got to deal with the loan book. And then, clean them out. They need to be net zero. Get them out, because some of the accounts are collateral for loans. It's very complicated. And they got, cash management. So I'm guessing that they've got like an intermediate plan to reduce Bank of America to 2/3 of its original size. By original, I mean 2 years ago. 2/3. Okay, and that would be, I think, consistent with what you're seeing. I don't think you're seeing more than 1/3 of the branches get shut down. Maybe. Are you seeing more than?
I think a lot more than 1/3. Yeah. I mean, my friend in Scottsdale, multiple branches around her were shut down. There's been multiple branches shut down here. This is over a span of the last 3 years, probably.
Oh, 3 years. Okay, because
2 to 3 years.
I'm more focused on the last 6 or 8 months.
Oh, okay.
This year.
Okay. To me, this has been a process.
Okay, maybe they've got a plan to get it down to half, but you have to consider a different way of viewing. Okay, this is the way I do it. It could be that Scottsdale was determined to be shut down largely, but Phoenix not. Scottsdale, yes, and Tucson not. Okay. Tempe not. But Scottsdale, maybe it's different in a certain way. They want to shut that down. Maybe because they don't have a good book of business loans. Could be Scottsdale's a bigger retirement community. I don't know. I don't really care. But there are different areas that might get, we'll shut down this area. So what it looks like is, oh my gosh, they're all gone now, but not all gone in different cities. Okay. I believe that somewhere between 50 and 70% is the goal for Bank of America. Now, if they can't manage the patchwork well, Lisa, the overnight patchwork, and something gets out of control, and they call it nuclear events. If something goes nuclear with the treasury bonds, and notice that they pulled down the 10-year bond a little bit on the yield. They pulled it down a little bit. It's not going straight up. It came down a little bit. So could be
it went over 3% or something like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but it came down a little bit.
Okay.
It might be going back up, but that could be from two different things. It could be profit taking from the gamblers. Well, we got it right. We went to 3%. Now let's sell it, and we maybe buy it back at 2.8 because we're going to go up to 3.3. And these guys make incredible amounts of money. Incredible. I'm told that Volcker, when we went from 13% down to 6%, Wall Street made a couple of $1 trillion in profit. Okay. The point is they might lose control. Wherever they lose control for this managed departure of the big clients and other smaller. Okay, I know some people who have closed their money out of Bank of America. They've done consult calls with me. They said, I got $130,000 out of Bank of America, and it's in my credit union right now. Is that a good move? And I said, I think so. Yeah, I think so. What do I do? How do I buy silver? I know you like silver. Okay, so that's what the consult called about. But the starting point is they got out of Bank of America. I had one guy, this is about 3 weeks ago, and he said, Jim, I've still got $170,000 in Bank of America. Am I at risk? And I said, well, I think, yeah, let's not mince words here. He said, okay, I think I can get it out in like 5 steps. If I get it down to 50,000, you think I'm safe? And I say, well, only leave in there what you're willing to lose. So yeah, safe. Right. Okay, unbelievable. Sometimes the justification. All right, if they lose control, Lisa, it'll not be a situation where the midnight or 2 a.m. call to the Fed comes in saying we need $5 billion to patch this. They're going to say we need $80 billion.
Oh my gosh.
Well, we don't know. They don't tell us. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency has only part of the reveal. It could be that they lose control, and it could be something completely out of the blue, like foreign investors pull out. Foreign investors.
Is the answer always yes?
For risk, yes, when it comes to the interest rate swap derivatives and the derivatives. It could be that the Saudis pulled out of Bank of America because they got really angry with the Bushes over other matters. Yeah, lots of things. And it could be other things too. It could be that they had, some collateral put up in a complex weaving to justify their big derivative book. And one of their collaterals was in Evergrande in China. Okay, we don't know. The weaving is incredibly complex. And now you got a problem with Credit Suisse.
Yeah.
On 2 occasions, Goldman Sachs, that's the enemy camp, by the way. There's an Anglo-European, there's an American-European war going on between banks. And I haven't even gotten to that. I want to finish this topic of derivative risk. If you have an account with Bank of America or another one with a huge interest rate swap derivative book, you're at risk for them having an overnight event where they lose control, and it's not $5 billion for a patch job. It's a lot bigger than that, an order of magnitude bigger than that, where they can't handle it. And the Fed says, we can do a partial. Try to get this under control, and they can't. Then the next day, it becomes more publicized. They need another $5 billion, and they get 12. And then the word gets out. And then there's a run on the bank. That's what they're trying to avoid, a run on the bank. If it gets out of control, they will do a bail-in. You won't get your money back. If it gets out of control, and I tried to explain 1 or 2 different scenarios how it could get out of control.
Yeah.
And that's just the interest rate swap derivative. The good news on the other side of the fence is that the petrodollar derivative is more under control because they raised the oil price. Now it becomes a profitable venture to liquidate, but they got a very big problem that the silver price is way down low. They can't fix silver. And my friend and fellow, not exactly a colleague, but I've done a couple of shows with him, Chris Marcus, he's a silver expert. He calls it a beach ball. Silver is a beach ball held underwater. I say it's a basketball held underwater by 5 guys. This is way, way out of control. Silver, when it gets resolved, it's going to do a double and a triple. I don't mean 10, 20%. I mean a double or a triple. I mean like $40 to $50.
Will it? And I was told that once it goes to $50 again, it goes to 600 and 1,000 within 3 or 4 days. Like it's a matter of days that when it goes, it goes.
Let's just speculate a little bit. Pardon my back. Let's just speculate a little bit. Let's suppose silver has its own problems. Like, I like the scenarios. I don't like saying, well, let's just say we'll wake up one morning and we got a $30 price, or we got a $26 price. Well, yeah, okay, that's all fun and it's all interesting, but let's talk about how that might happen, because we need to add to the credibility. We need to bolster the credibility with stories and scenarios. Okay, right now in Moscow, the gold price is $2,500. It might be a little bit up or down from that, but we've got a bit of a watermark because they pegged their ruble to 1 gram of gold was 1,000 rubles. And I had my formula all set in the back of a sheet for calculating. But if I knew what the ruble was worth, if it's around 60, then we're around 2,500 for gold price in Moscow. And I always like to say, imagine all those different Russian oligarchs who are in London. We always hear about they're in trouble, or they've been murdered, or they had their accounts seized. There are lots and lots of Russian oligarchs. Well, they might be the primary people to do an arbitrage against the London gold. Buy London, sell Russia. Buy London, sell Russia. Keep on doing it until they break the London LBMA. Okay, there also might be a scandal. Okay, remember how we got the allocated and registered, and then suddenly a year ago there was a new goofy
promised or something like that.
Pledged.
It's
yes. Called pledged. And my joke is, the Wall Street guy has an uncle in upstate New York, and he claims that he's got a ton of gold in his basement. Well, let's count it. Okay, that's part of the COMEX inventory, the goofy, crappy, fictional pledge category. Okay, all right. I'm not even going to get into, allocated versus registered and swapping and double counting. And, well, I thought that was counted over by the Wells Fargo account. Well, no, we're going to count that also in the JP Morgan account. Well, it'll add to the volume. Okay, that's what they're doing. Okay, some of this might get revealed. I mean, in a big way. I don't mean like, rumor tells us. Huh?
Soon? This year?
I can't hear you. What?
Soon? When? When do you think this would be this result?
You're saying dune, like sand dune. Okay.
No, I'm sorry. Everyone
we're breaking.
That's the big question. It's like, when, how long?
We're breaking now. We're breaking all over the place. Okay. Another possible scenario is a foreign country says, well, we want our gold, and we've been putting up with your nonsense for the last 4 years or 12, and we really want our gold because we don't trust you anymore due to your COVID stimulus and your tremendous $2 trillion budget deficit, and it's going up at $1 trillion every 2 or 3 months. We want to get our gold out because we see a black hole in New York and Washington. Okay, there are lots and lots of scenarios. Okay, I think we're going to see some events real soon. I think we've already seen some. I remember there was an event about 6 or 8 years ago that Chad in northern Africa was mentioned, and suddenly they were going to have annual output of gold that equaled exactly the payback to the German central bank.
How convenient.
Yeah, well, then I found out that the Langley crew from the CIA was managing the operation. So they were making sure there were not any intruders, with military uniforms out of Chad. Chad is not a military power, as you know. So that all went off well, and Germany got paid back, but I don't think they got paid back everything. There are a lot of risk areas here. And I tend to think that there are 2 or 3 different factors that are going to back up silver. Silver is the weak link. I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit. I'm allowed to. By that I mean, not exactly sure what I'm saying, but I'm just speculating. It's just two adults, not exactly two guys, but two adults talking. Okay, we might see tremendous pressure from Chile, Ecuador, Mexico, and elsewhere to open up their silver mines. I mean, national pressure to get back to work. We got a lot of poverty. We need to put people back to work. Our country needs to build back its reserves. We got some currency problems. I marked down, I think it was April, that between January and April, the Chilean peso lost 35%. 3 months. Okay, how do they fix that? They get back to work in their silver mines, in their copper mines, and they start building up some surplus for exports, and they fix their national accounts. Okay, these countries are waiting for the criminal idiots to get their act together so they can get back to work and go mine silver. I don't want to talk about Mexico. Mexico is a very complex story, and I can't claim to understand it all. They need to get back to work, but there's a lot of theft. I'm told 20%. 20% of the output from Mexican mines is going to the drug cartel. So that means that the mining companies are taking that loss. And I'd rather not talk about that much.
Yeah, that's really what that documentary Gold, Dirty Gold was kind of explaining that, how the illegal gold is mined and used to wash
about silver and
drug money.
Drug cartel thefts. Okay, you're talking about the Congo and the distressed region of Africa and other regions like that. Where
this was in Peru. Yeah, Peru.
Oh, I didn't know Peru. Okay, because there's a lot of black market mining in South America, and it's a dirty secret. It's done a lot in Brazil, and they try not to get that publicized. I got wind of that a while ago.
And they use mercury, and they're poisoning the areas. Yeah.
Okay, all right. That's one factor. Little countries want to get back to work and remedy their national accounts. Okay, there's another factor. It's XRP. We have left that alone out of this whole conversation, and we don't have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of time left, but XRP is linked to gold. XLM is linked to silver. That's just the tip of the iceberg for the story. The big bankers originated these tokens, and there are many aspects of this that you're probably better informed, better read than I am.
I may not be. I'm telling you, there's so much going on, and there's things happening. There are stories behind the scenes that people are speculating about that I've been hearing about. So I do not know. I'm not an expert on this, so I'm listening. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on it.
The big banks. I had this exact conversation with a consult call, and the lady added some information to it. So these consult calls sometimes are a two-way street, which is really benefiting me. The big banks originated XRP. I'd like to focus on XRP because it's from Ripple. It has its own history. Stellar is a little bit different, but it's largely a parallel road, not completely. Largely a parallel road. So the big banks originated XRP, but they cannot maintain full control. They will not have control of all the off-ramps and on-ramps for the digital highway, loosely speaking, after this is all over. And I'm sure I described this in much similar terms a few months ago when we did another show. But the main point that is becoming more clear to me by the day, by the week, is that the big banks are now rather insistent and motivated that you not own XRP. They want it for themselves. They know what's coming, and they've been making it harder by means of the Uphold crypto exchange for you to own it. I have numerous stories. Jim, I tried to buy $300 or $250 worth of XRP, and it got turned down. And finally, I got some for $20. Tried to buy it 100, failed. Tried 50, failed. Tried at 25, failed. And I finally got some for $10. Okay, they're making it hard to buy XRP. And they're using Uphold as a reason. And there could be two reasons for that. It could be that they really do have a big obstacle for you, or they don't have very many. How many are floating? Okay, if the big banks know what's coming with XRP and a huge rise, are they going to make it easy for you to buy some?
No.
Are they going to say, well, we'll put out several thousand a week so that the public can participate?
For the goodness of their hearts. Yes, from the goodness of their hearts.
All right, so XRP is harder to find. And I think it was about a month ago, you probably heard this too, of a preemptive buyout by the big banks to the private individual XRP holders of $500 per coin. They mentioned 200, they mentioned 500. I heard 500 mentioned more than 200. I asked a friend of mine, you've got X right now. Are you going to turn down X million? You've got X thousand now. You're going to turn down X million? He said, not a chance. I'll take it. I'll take it and I'll never look back. And I got some that I'll share with you, Jim, because I know you're out in the front line. I love that kind of talk. Okay, there is a movement now to gather in the XRP and make sure you don't have much or you don't have any.
Well, there's the ongoing SEC versus Ripple case right now, and every exchange that I know of in the U.S. is like not trading XRP because of that. So could that be a coordinated effort?
Yeah, but it's part of the ruse. I've asked my three smartest crypto guys who know about XRP. I asked all three, what is the basis of the SEC case? Is it empty? Is it vacuous? Is it a sham? All three said, yes, there's nothing behind it. They filed a lawsuit. They're struggling to get an actual case. They're struggling to define the complaint. What's the complaint? Well, it's kind of general. Well, what the hell's a complaint? Corruption in the digital finance market. What's the complaint? Okay, it's vacuous. So now they're going to withdraw it, and that'll be the signal that the big bankers believe that they've accumulated all that they think they can.
Okay.
And then might come the preemptive buyout. I'd be happy for my friends if it's 200, because 200 right now, I believe, is something like 400 times the current price, roughly, something like that. Okay. 500 is something like 1,000 times the current price. 50 cents, 500. It's 1,000, 1,000-fold. I know three men.
How would that buyout happen, though?
I don't know.
There's a thing that they did to Veritasium where then they seized the coins, the majority of the coins, in a settlement with Reggie. No fault was stated or admitted to, but then they created what's called a very fair fund where they were going to then pay out the people that were harmed, pay them back the money they to do the buyout, but pay them back from that fund. But it's been over 3 years and no one has been paid by the SEC.
Well, that's how they
just kept, they're keeping the money.
Like they threw a lasso around the entire crowd who was going to seek a remedy. They threw a lasso around them, and they gave them a bullshit sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them ate it, and some of it put it aside and realized that this is rotten. I don't eat bullshit sandwiches very easily, but I will admit that in my personal life here, I've been defrauded. Someone asked me a funny question the other day. I imagine you got a lot of American friends here. I said, no, the 2 or 3 that I had defrauded me. I don't want any more American friends. I got online friends. I got some clients who come to visit me. Now, I had 2 American friends defraud me, and it wasn't for a tiny sum either. Okay, the very fair episode might eliminate an XRP fair episode. And that could be one reason they go and do a preemptive buyout, because they don't want aggrieved investors littering the landscape with lawsuits. And then you got a class action. No, right. You were bought out and you signed off. That's what I think is coming.
Okay.
And what happens for XRP also might happen for XLM. The degree and multiple might not be the same. The reason I brought up XRP, because we were talking about what is going to push up the gold and silver price and cause a big incident. They might use XRP as the instrument, as the device and leverage tool, the big crowbar to jack up gold to 2,500 in 1 week. And then they'll force, okay, you made a point, and I'll back it up. If they jack it up to 2,100 and then the next day it's 2,300, what is happening? Short covering.
Okay.
The people who are short gold, they're going to be in a panic to buy and get out and limit their loss, and they're going to have big losses. Goes up to 25, then suddenly you might see derivatives from the petrodollar kick in. And then it goes up to 3,000 in the next 2 weeks. And then you get the wrong, that was a little bug, sorry. I eat yogurt here, and in the morning I track bugs. There's going to be numerous different factors that push up the gold price. It could be the other factors that I mentioned, COMEX scandal, falsified inventory report. Andy
Schechtman has been reporting on that. There's a Congressman Mooney that's talking, trying to hold the mint accountable for not printing the Silver Eagles.
Like Lady X with Bill Holter and Andy Schechtman of Miles Franklin. What happened to Lady X?
I don't know who that is.
She had a $50 million silver order.
Oh, yeah.
And I heard it was filled.
It was filled.
But I heard that she was going to repeat it 20 times to make a $1 billion order. But I think she might have had her life threatened.
Oh, wow. I had heard there would be more purchases, but I did not have any numbers or anything. So you have more information on that.
It could be that she was told there's not a whole lot more silver. So if you do this, you're going to expose some very dangerous people doing dangerous games, and it could come back to you.
Wow.
That's often how it happens, but there's a lot more to that. Okay.
Yeah.
They might be planning to use XRP to break the COMEX market, and the same for XLM to break the silver within the COMEX market. There's whenever I see a big new item in the picture, I wonder immediately, how is it going to relate to the other big items in the picture? Because they compete or they wreck each other. They work together or they kill each other. XRP is going to be a factor. How will that work out with the COMEX? I think it's going to wreck it. Okay, why will the bankers expect a big rise in, or require a big rise in XRP? Because the XRP total market cap is nowhere near international trade settlement volume. If you just take, say, 6 or 8 commonly trading nations like Japan, South Korea, Canada, the United States, England, and Germany, what's their volume? It doesn't come anywhere near, the XRP doesn't come anywhere near that volume. They need a big rise in XRP in order to have it fulfill its role. That's why it's a good investment. If it's difficult to get, don't give up. It's difficult because it's going to be worth it. Is it hard to find a good husband? Well, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It's worth it if you go through the effort.
They're definitely worth it.
Okay. I'm being a little facetious here, but Lisa, I'm excited by what's coming, but I'm also in a bit of a state of dread.
Mm-hmm. You had told me once about XRP being kind of like a Trojan horse, or maybe Veritasium. You were talking off camera and using an analogy of like a bridge and a Trojan horse. And it's like the banksters ordered this thing and asked for this thing, and then they got it, and then they open it and they're like, wait a minute, this isn't what we wanted. We want to be in control of the money. And
Yes.
you said
Yes.
you're just in control of your money. And Veritasium is a part of that I guess Veritasium was inside the XRP Trojan horse that they didn't order that part of the package, but they have to take it. Right? Is that a fair analogy?
Yeah, I didn't remember what we were talking about with your reference to Trojan horse. Yes, yes.
That was our
Okay,
conversation.
I tried
Yeah.
to allude to that a little bit. The big bankers created something that they cannot control for the on-ramps on the other side of the digital financial highway, where Reggie is far more in control. Okay, the Veritasium might have been the portion that Reggie Middleton had to hang on to and wanted to get rid of and wanted a good price for. So it's all package deal, take one, take all. And Veritasium, which is going to have its intellectual property converted to DeFi. And I don't know a whole lot about that, except Reggie has the DeFi, and he's very cleverly moved a lot of intellectual property, even during that frivolous, empty lawsuit. Now there's a new, okay, did we learn anything from the frivolous, vacuous lawsuit that got terminated without any prosecutions?
Exactly.
Okay, they're doing the same thing with Ripple.
Exactly. The charge for Reggie was fraud because they said he offered people this, promise on getting these patents. Well, now the patents have been given to him. He has a US patent and a Japanese patent. So there were no charges, it was settled. It was vacuous, like you said, but it still brought harm to
a delay to reduce demand.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's working.
So this
I
is
have a
more
number
of
of
that.
clients that, well, I was going to go after XRP, but they're in a lawsuit. I said, go after it. Get a hot bid account. They're on the Pacific Rim. They're not restricting. That's the latest word I heard. They're not restricting on XRP, but if they do restrict, that's going to be more proof that there's a supply shortage.
Okay.
If they
Which
do
is what we're seeing in silver too, though, the supply shortage with the Eagles. So all of this failure to deliver is happening not only in precious metals, but now in these crypto that are associated with it.
The Canadians are not limiting volume of silver maple leafs. They're not limiting.
Interesting.
And they're not charging the big premium. I've got a theory, just a theory, that the Americans don't have as much silver to supply to the mint. So they come up with their various stories regarding health matters and reduce staff at the mint. And then they charge more for their resulting output at the US Mint because they really do have less. Okay, if you've got big demand and less supply, you can do more price increases on the premium side. To me, it's an indication of where we're going. Of course, it's an indication of the crime. If you have to sell that 2 months later, oh my gosh, my wife is very sick. I need to sell all my US based Silver Eagles. And I just bought them 2 months ago. Okay, yeah, you're going to lose money. And that's a crime for the low price you're going to get for it. You paid a lot of money for your premium. Okay, the crime is on the sale side. The crime is not on the buy side. The premium is an indication of market price. And it's a good clue of where we're going. I tell people, don't get discouraged. Yeah, okay, maybe you could buy Canadian maples. Fine.
Whatever you can get your hands on.
There might be a premium at the sale time, the selling time, a year from now. Well, we have some Silver Eagles. Okay, we're paying a few bucks over. We're paying 5% over for that. Oh my gosh. Okay, now you mentioned about rapidly moving from. I got to close this.
Yes, I know.
Rapidly moving to 50 and then higher, and then suddenly we're in the hundreds. Yeah. There are going to be two forces. I look to forces. I look to dynamics. I don't look to, well, I think it's going to be 300. Why? Well, because the thing is, I like the number. No.
Yeah.
There's going to be massive short covering. And there's going to be massive liquidations of the petrodollar derivative.
Okay.
And that's going to force more buying of silver than gold to liquidate. And if it's already in a shortage, they're going to need the Andes region of Chile, Ecuador, Bolivia, and Mexico. They're going to need it to bring supply so that it doesn't go to 1,000 silver. With them, they can control it to like 100 and then 200. We need new supply to slow this down. This is going to be bigger. Okay, good. $12 over spot. I heard 18 over spot from a consult client.
Yeah, I've heard other places are even more than that, but
there are some that don't have as much. I heard that too. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I'm excited because the second factor is going to be the technology demand. Okay, we're getting very close. I've got a client who, as a boy, his father was a Roswell physicist. Okay, I tell you, my little lines for information, they surprise me and amaze me. It's crazy. It's just crazy. He said he was a client 2 years ago. He said, I want to call you up. This is before I had consult calls. He said, I got a bunch of information to share with you. And he knows a dozen men who were killed for commercializing Tesla technology.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one, and he's hiding in India. They're leaving him alone, but he's using the Tesla technology.
That is coming out everywhere. So I saw an article just yesterday or day before that they have uncovered a tunnel under Niagara Falls with Tesla inventions in it for energy.
A boring machine, a hole boring machine.
Well, and there's these tunnels all over the world now that are being built or in the process of building with like a highway or a tunnel that can be used for creating energy, hydro energy. And I thought of like what Elon was doing. He was digging tunnels all over everywhere. So I don't know if that's related, but
I need to learn
Niagara
about
Falls.
that.
Yeah,
So
I'll send you the article about the Niagara Falls.
What you're saying is there's a potential for boring holes that are not small,
right,
under huge water deposits, and then let gravity do the work, and you've got a hydro source. I wonder where they send the water, though.
I don't know.
Maybe I don't know. Very few people know that 60% of Costa Rica's electricity is from hydropower. It rains cats and dogs for 7 months, and we're coming out of that now. We have very little rain now. We're in November. We have very little rain, but occasionally, oh boy, a very hot day. The next day it rains like crazy. And you don't go out, you don't bother with all that. You just leave it alone for an hour, let it calm down. Because you see little rivers in the street with palm tree leaves on them. They knock down big palm tree leaves. Okay. The silver is going to be required for advanced new technology. And a lot of it is over energy production, but some of it is not.
Okay.
I could go on. It's a very big topic, and I don't know a lot about it. I know some. Every time I have a certain type of consult client, I learn a little bit more from his or her own background. But we're going to see kind of a reverse revolution of green energy. And notice that green energy is mentioned with respect to the German economy. They want to rely on green energy. Well, what a great way to shut down the economy, because green energy can't handle more than 5 to 10% of the needs. So let's go green. That's the way they're snookering people into shutting down their economy. Let's go green.
That's what destroyed Sri Lanka, right? Was the change in their fertilizer to go green, and was destroying their farms, and the tea leaves, and it was horrible.
Yeah, well, a nice
destroyed their economy.
Experimental ground for the elites of the West, right?
Let's
see how this turns out in Sri Lanka before we do it in Kansas. Yep. Let's hold off on Kansas. Yeah. All right. Well, look, I hope people go to the Golden-Jackass website. We've gone on quite a bit here, and I've enjoyed it. Usually when I get surprised on how long it's been, it's because I've enjoyed it and time flies. But I've been getting more consult orders lately, and it's all wonderful.
That's great. Yeah.
They take time. Need time to line them up.
Well, and you always give more time than what you first promise. You're very generous with your time. I appreciate that so much. Your knowledge, your time.
Okay. Could you make yellow that subscribe in the middle there? How do you make that yellow? Hit it again?
I might have to go back or refresh the page.
Okay.
It's because I've already clicked it once.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go.
The October report. Don't click it again. The October report. Oh, you're flashing it. Oh, you're so clever. The October report was posted last Thursday or Friday, and I've got a new format, and I'm going to stick with it. It's shorter. I'll way back 10 years ago, I had 2 different 40-page reports. I was working all the time, and I was trying to get word out. Well, it was about 4 years ago, I made just 1 report. Now I'm making, Egon von Greyer's made a suggestion to me. He said, Jim, just cut your report in half or a little bit more. Make more summary stories. Bring your links in. Make your point about a conclusion or an expectation forecast. But they're long, and I can't read it all. But he was very generous. He helped me out with the sponsor button.
That's
Egon,
awesome.
I won't give any more details about that, but so I got the subscription to the newsletter. It's my flagship. It's what my main work is. Now what I'm doing is, Lisa, I got probably about 6 to 8 chapters, and they're each in outline form, and some of the outline bullets are 2, 3, 6 lines. So it's shorter reporting. There's a lot going on, and I don't want people to miss by getting focused too much on 1 or 2 things. They got to see the big picture, and having an outline form is the best way to do that. So I got the subscription, I got the consult, I got the sponsor, and I might have a major change for donate because that's tied to PayPal. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Is there a timeline on the latest newsletter? Is there a more concise timeline of like when you're anticipating some of these things to happen with silver, possible court military incidents here locally, other things like that?
I think we're going to have a lot of focus on the election, on disputes for the election, on resolution on disputes for the election, on exposure of deep criminality for the election, for consequences and arrests for parties responsible and guilty during the election. And then we might have something very explosive like military rule martial law. I think, well, before we get to quick trial, we got to clear the streets and we got to arrest these people. Okay, there's a lot of talk about, 400,000 sealed indictments. I think it's more like 400,000 documents that are sealed within indictments.
Oh, okay. That would make a lot of sense.
I remember hearing that there was someone opened up, I think it was something like 5,000 indictments and found that it was really just 20 to 23 to 1. Okay, by that I mean within each package of indictments, there was one case, one indictment with 20 to 23 documents.
Pieces of proof or evidence or something.
Pieces within the package of indictment material. They're not individual indictments, they're indictment material. So take the total number and divide by 20 or 23, and what you get is like, I think it comes to 20,000, 25,000 people. That's a lot of arrests. that means that in your town, there are going to be some, almost wherever you are. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're likely to see something like that. And if we don't, I'm going to be disappointed. If we don't, that means we're not going to get a fix for our national situation that has wandered a long, long way from the democratic process and a long, long way from the capitalist system.
Yeah.
Capital is not working right. It's not priced right. The price of money. What's the price of money? It should be
whatever
something
they say it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. We don't have proper capital allocation. We don't have proper capital reward. What we get now more than anything else is the gambler's reward. There's a problem now, and I've heard this. Oh my gosh, it surprises me every time. Jim, I run a business. We can't find help. We can't find employees.
I hear that all the time.
Okay. What it means to me is a few different things. People are seeing that they could be on unemployment or sell drugs and make money. People are maybe not of a proper mindset to do the 9 to 5 or 8 to 5. I did 8 to 5:30 when I was at Staples.
There was a Starbucks guy on a video crying that Starbucks changed their ruling or their rules that you have to work a minimum of 25 hours or something like that. And so because of that, he was going to have to work 2 8-hour shifts on the weekend. And he was just bawling his eyes out. How could he do that? He's devastated, and I'm like, dude, like, I was pulling 10, 12-hour shifts, going to college and trying to work. I was happy to have the work, but these snowflakes,
these are who are not only worn out, though, Lisa, they might be badly overweight.
Or medicated. Yeah.
Yeah. I have another client who said to me, Jim, it is as much the addicts as it is the overweight who cannot work for me. If I hire an addict, he doesn't last long. In a month or two, he doesn't show up. He's on a bender, whatever. He shows up later, and I say, hey, look, you didn't show up for 3 days. You caused problems. We got business here to run.
Yeah.
And you're gone. And the other ones,
well, I was thinking welfare,
they're on some section, whatever kind of medication from the government.
Yeah.
And don't expect these unvetted worker migrants who cross the border, don't expect them to pull a 9-hour shift. Forget that. Forget that. Now they're on welfare, and the condition is they vote Democrat. Yeah, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And there are 30 million of them since Obama came in. I have one client. He's in Lewiston, Maine. Okay, golly. Nothing ever happens in Lewiston, Maine, except Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay paying off Sonny Liston to take a dive so that Cassius Clay can be the world heavyweight champion. And the angles are very clear. In Lewiston, Maine match, Sonny Liston took a dive without ever being hit, and he didn't get up. And he was a heroin addict. And 6 months later, he was murdered with a hot shot. Removal of the evidence, Lisa.
Right.
Okay, with this Lewiston, man, I get diverted so easily. It's fun. The Lewiston,
we
Maine
enjoy
client,
all the stories.
The Lewiston client said to me, Jim, we've got 10,000 Somalis here. They got their own
in Maine.
No. In Lewiston, Maine.
I'll have to look it up. Lewiston, Maine. I have a friend in Maine.
Well, he probably knows all about it. What happened was that Maine had some very friendly package programs for the relocated.
So that's all done, or a lot of that is done through Catholic Charities. I think that's going to be exposed as well, or I hope it is.
Yeah, and how the little kids go missing. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All All right. Well, thanks for having me on. I got to go.
Oh,
It's been
no, I
fun.
know. I'll keep you on
Fun,
here
and
all day.
I
I
was
really
really glad
appreciate
to
it.
see your message this morning that we're going to go through with this. Good.
Yes.
All right. I hope people sign up for the newsletter.
Everybody go to.
They say, I wish I'd done it earlier. I have two funny complaints. They're positive complaints. I wish I'd done this earlier. I'm a client now. I'll be with you a while. And the other one was, I was a client of yours 10 years ago, and I stayed with it for 5 or 6 years, but I got kind of worn out because it's a lot of information. But your forecast came true, and I came back.
Yeah.
And I wish I never left.
Yeah. And like you said, it's a very reasonable newsletter, $110 for 6 months.
6 months. Yep.
$220 for the year with great information. And who doesn't love Jim Willie? My goodness. All right.
Bye.
Take care, Jim.
Lisa. Talk to you later.
Love to you. Talk to you later. Thanks, guys.